Hi, Gordon here again with another edition of the Unscripted Series. Recently we were at the Reno Ukulele Festival, great festival, and one of our owners said to me, the more he thinks, the more that we do the Unscripted Series, the more philosophical I get, or touch on philosophical subjects, which I thought about that. I think maybe a lot of them are philosophical. And maybe it's because, I think I've said all there is to say, all I know to say about building and stuff like that. And we'll kind of see where this one goes. I've got some ideas in my head, but I wanted to talk about kind of where we run into frustrations or difficulties at Myamoe and what happens. And I want to take care. I really stayed away from this topic because I think it's good to always be positive and project, like look at the good side of things. But the fact is that bad things do happen. I remember very early on, we went to the website of a ukulele builder, and right on his homepage he said, if anyone ever sees such and such a guy in Japan, find him for me because he's got my ukulele and he never paid me. And I thought, what kind of a thing is that to put on your homepage? Like, there's one problem. I've always believed, don't basically preach to people that aren't the problem. Everybody hitting his homepage kind of sees that. Anyway, so we try to stay away from that. We try to, when we have an issue with an owner, we talk directly with that person rather than blast it out, to everybody. And if we have more persistent sort of issues, we try to put in place policies that help us. But, things do happen from time to time that are frustrating. You might think that those are shop things. Last week I talked about imperfection, and while those can be frustrating when something happens out of your control in the shop, on the other hand, there's always something to be done about it, and it's nobody's fault. And I think what's difficult on us at times is when we're working with a person who inadvertently, and I want to underscore that word, I don't think anyone does these things out of malice or forethought, but inadvertently does something that makes our life more difficult, or doesn't understand quite how we work and how we build and what we're doing here, and something that they're asking for, can make things more difficult than it has to be. It's also an interesting kind of study on human nature. I've joked that someday I'm going to write a book that is about what we've learned about human nature using Myamoe ukuleles as the experiment, because you do see windows into human nature. I mean, one of the more interesting things is that, there's that saying that the more you give somebody, the more that they want. And I think that's really true of us in general. And maybe that's a good thing. We're always raising the bar. We're always becoming more demanding. We're not satisfied with what we have. What that means to us is, I look back a few years ago before Uke Tracker, and still to this date, I don't know anyone else doing anything like that, certainly not in ukulele building. But before that, there was a time where we did no pictures. Shar selected the wood, no picture, and we built the ukulele. And people were perfectly happy. We got great reviews. They liked their instrument. And then, I don't know if someone asked for a picture, but every once in a while we would take one while we were building and we would email it. And then, people would ask for more pictures. And we came up with the idea of Uke Tracker and said, boy, this is going to be great. We're going to give people just what they've been asking for. No one else does this. This will be super cool. They can see their schedule. They'll know when things are going to happen. And they can get 14 pictures of their instrument along the way. And guess what? People ask us for more pictures. Even now, we get asked for pictures at various stages of our process. And, I think the fact is that you give more and there will be more requests. And we have to be very careful about not changing the very nature of who we are. Someone remarked to me a couple of years ago that please don't change Myamoe, don't change the culture, be careful, don't get jaded. And these things can make you jaded. You can say, you can imagine in our position, where we have put so much time into Uke Tracker and to all of our technology and to the picture taking and having an application, 2 applications written for our iPhone, and then someone says, but can I get a picture like this? And you can imagine how that could be frustrating in our position. And you can imagine how in time you might adopt a posture that was less than positive when those sort of things happened. So that's an interesting challenge for us. I think another thing that happens that can be frustrating is when we email people and we don't get an email response, especially right around freeze time, because we're ready to get going, and and what's happened is there's one where we've really changed our approach and our policies basically by putting out what I call a pre-freeze email. So a month before the freeze, we send out an email and say, hey, you're a month away. And what we found is a lot of people, and we really appreciate this, a lot of people get that email, review it, make any changes that they need to make, and they say, go ahead and freeze now. And that's great because, then we don't have to wait up until the final minute. But, we had someone about a month ago who canceled on their freeze date. And, I would underscore that they just don't understand how we work, and any impact on us was inadvertent. And I'm sure it was a person that really wanted their ukulele and wanted to wait till what they thought of as the last minute to decide whether or not they could afford it, and made, I think, a great choice for them that they couldn't afford it. I'm assuming it's a great choice. Hate to see someone stretch themselves uncomfortably. So anyway, but to get the problem, if you do know how we work, the problem with a cancellation on your freeze date is that that's the state where we start things. It's not your official start date, but as you know from the Birth of a Mayamoe series, if you're watching that, that is the date where Shar pulls the wood set, sends it to Ben, Ben joins it, Ben makes the fretboard, and all of that is timed to be done in advance of the official start of build so that all of our parts are ready. So if someone cancels on their freeze date, that really says on that day, I've got to find a person that can come in with their configuration frozen, ready to go. And a bunch of you out there, I'm sure, are thinking, hey, I'm ready. Like, I've got one on order. Pick me, pick me. The problem there is then the ripple effect. Then, what the impact on us is a lot of database work, right? Where we're changing start dates and moving instruments around and so forth. And, moving one instrument, not a problem. A ripple where I'm moving 5 or 10, again, it's an impact that we'd rather not face. So if you're someone out there that is thinking, maybe I can't afford this, the earlier notice we have, the better. I'll tell you that we just had a person, and this is really what's prompted this video, is this week, finished an instrument, so obviously frozen, sent out the email that your build has started, and then it's done, and sent an email saying, hey, it's done, here's your final balance, we're ready to ship, here are the pictures, and didn't hear anything back. And a day or two later, I mean, usually right away we get payment like, hey, I want my ukulele. And a day later, I don't wait very long, I go, hey, and I send it from another email address because maybe we're getting blocked or whatever. And so I send out another email and say, hey, wanted to make sure you got our done email. Nothing. One day later, from another email address, I send out an email and say, hey, are you getting our emails? And I get one back that says, sorry, but I just can't afford this instrument. And again, I'm really sure, I don't know what's going on in this person's life, and maybe there's a recent financial impact. So my point really is not that this person, is a mean or a bad person, but rather that sort of thing really puts me into a tailspin because, to some degree it does shake my faith in human nature or something. Because now we've got an instrument, and had the person told us 5 days earlier, we wouldn't have put a label in it that said custom made for. Had the person told us a day earlier, we wouldn't have attached a laminated tag to the case with the person's name on it. Had the person told us a day earlier, we would have put a strap button on it, which we put on nearly every instrument, but this person didn't want one. Had they told us 8 days earlier, we would have put an end pin in the instrument, which we put on nearly every instrument, unless requested otherwise. Didn't want an end pin. So now I've got an instrument that we've got to do some work on, replace the label, put in an end pin, and find a home for. And we can take it to festivals, but when I think of the fact that, I think the other impact is, think of all of you out there who'd say, I would have taken that build slot. And so when that happens, it's someone that's hurting other people and not just us. But, I think maybe sometimes people just don't realize that, hey man, it's really, depending upon how you count, there's 7 of us here, or if you count all the people who are actually, building parts, there's 5 of us here. If you're talking about the people that are actually making ukuleles, there's 3 of us. People that are on email, there's 2 of us. And so it's just us. And, we're trying to, and I think the good thing is we prop each other up. I'll get, something like that happens to me and I'm just, upset. But both Aaron and Shar come to my rescue and pick up some slack, help out a little bit, get me a glass of wine, and then I can return to my former bubbly self. So anyway, there you go. For those of you who thought I was getting philosophical, how's that for philosophy and my study of human nature? This I will do as chapter 13 of my book, Maya Moe as a Human Nature Experiment. See you next week.